In Russia, the crisis in container logistics is escalating due to regional restrictions, the loss of efficiency of transport infrastructure, border congestion, and lack of capacity in key hubs can significantly reduce Russia's ability to quickly transfer resources. This was reported by the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine. According to intelligence, all container sites in the Russian Federation are registered. Operators must have a contract for handling solid municipal waste, as well as for container equipment, fencing, security, lighting, sewage, a system for photo and video recording of container movement, and even an electronic scanner for inspecting the contents of containers. In view of this, terminals and depots are being massively closed in the Moscow region, which has already led to serious disruptions in the transport hub of the Russian capital. Operators reported that they were forced to move their container flows to neighboring regions. At the same time, at the few remaining terminals in the Moscow region, the cost of services has already doubled. Due to the imbalance of import-export flows, empty containers are beginning to accumulate in the Moscow transport hub, for which there are no storage facilities. The railway infrastructure is operating at its limit, and the roads of the capital region are filled with trucks. The complete closure of the depot could increase freight traffic by more than 1 million trips per year, which means congestion, chaos, and even greater costs, the report says. If the volume of transportation returns to pre-crisis levels, the situation will escalate into a full-scale transport collapse, which will lead not only to delays but also to disruption of supplies, the intelligence added. The loss of efficiency of transport infrastructure, border congestion, and lack of capacity in key hubs can significantly reduce Russia's ability to quickly transfer resources. This once again confirms the weakness of the system built on authoritarianism and corruption, the report says. Media notes that the Russian Federation is experiencing a decline in freight traffic amid the worsening economic situation. Decrease in freight transportation is observed for the 4th year in a row. In this regard, Russian Railways is planning to cut management staff and stop hiring new employees. State-owned monopoly, Russian Railways, is at a crisis point, the company's worst since the Great Recession almost 2 decades ago, with freight volumes at a record low due to the combined effects of Western sanctions and dwindling flows of agricultural goods and construction materials. Nevertheless, Russia's rail network is congested, not only with trains rushing to deliver military supplies urgently needed at the front, but with unused carriages. It also critically lacks both the personnel and locomotives required to keep the rail system running smoothly, and these problems only seem to be getting worse. This matters not only because Russian Railways is one of Russia's largest and richest state-owned enterprises, but because railway transport activity is also a bellwether for the wider economy. Freight must be moved today in order for business to be done tomorrow. When rail traffic is disrupted, it usually signals that an industrial slowdown is imminent. This also leads to social discontent and unrest.
The United States is considering a request by Ukraine for long-range Tomahawk missiles, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has said. According to Associated Press, however, Vance added President Donald Trump would be making the final determination on the matter. The missiles would be the longest-range weapons in Ukraine's arsenal and would allow it to strike targets deep inside Russia, including Moscow, with precision.
Vice President, how sensitive the gears to Ukraine and Russia? How confident or optimistic are you that something can start to be done along those lines as well?
Well, look, the President's been working at this, the entire team's been working at this for 8 months. We're going to keep on walking down the pathway of peace. Whether it takes us another few months, another few weeks, or God forbid longer than that, we're going to keep on working at it. How confident am I that this is going to get wrapped up? I feel optimistic, I would say that, but the timeline is anybody's guess.
Will the U.S. give Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine?
Well, I mean, the president right now is certainly hearing that request from the Ukrainians. We know that it's something that they want. That's something the president's going to ultimately decide, but he has not yet made the decision to give Tomahawks to Ukraine.
What was the calculation in not providing those Tomahawks to Ukraine at this time?
Well, look, the president of the United States is trying to ensure that America's security is taken care of first, and obviously that means that we need to have the critical weapon systems for our own military, for our own troops. So that's what the president is focused on. And as with all the decisions that he's made related to Russia and Ukraine, he's trying to bring peace because he thinks that's what's in America's best interest. If he thinks that it's in America's best interest to sell additional weapons to Europe, he will do that. But right now, he hasn't made that decision with regards to Tomahawks. All right, guys, have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, look, our main focus is obviously to blow up these boats that have narcotics on them, and we're extremely confident that when we take out one of these boats, it's boats that would have really terrible poison that would kill tens of thousands of Americans. When these actual boats get blown up, sometimes there are survivors, and I think the Secretary of State just makes a decision depending on what the scenario is, whether we're going to send them back home, whether we're going to prosecute them in the United States, or whether we're going to work with allies to bring them to justice. But we're certain these guys are narco-terrorists. What we do with them from there, just as with any other conflict, depends on the realities on the ground.
If they're alleged war criminals, though, shouldn't they be prosecuted as war detainees in the United States?
Well, look, if you look at the war on terrorism, you look at any other global conflict, what we do with combatants in those wars depends very heavily on the circumstances on the ground. Sometimes we cooperate with allies, sometimes we bring them back to the United States, sometimes we take them elsewhere. That's exactly how we're handling this, just on a case-by-case basis. But again, it's important for the American people to recognize these are narco-terrorists who are trying to bring poison into our country and kill our citizens. What happens to them, I don't really care so long as they're not bringing poison into our country. Hey guys, how are you? I know it's a little dark. Appreciate you coming out there with us. I thought we had a great visit with the Marines. They were obviously excited, and I was very excited too. But having to take a few questions before we hit the road.
Mr. Vice President, are you going to Israel?
We might. We're trying to figure it out. Obviously, want to go and check on how things are going, and I think somebody from the administration is certainly going to be over there the next few days. It might be me, but we're going to figure out how to travel there.
How confident are you that this truce can hold, given the events in Israel and Gaza over the last 24 hours?
Well, look, it's going to be complicated. I mean, the best case scenario, meaning if this thing absolutely produces that sustainable long-term peace that the president and I hope that it will, there are going to be fits and starts. There are going to be, Hamas is going to fire on Israel. Israel's going to have to respond, of course. There are going to be moments where you have people within Gaza where you're not quite sure what they're actually doing. So we think that it has the best chance for a sustainable peace. But even if it does that, it's going to have hills and valleys, and we're going to have to monitor the situation. When we talk about Hamas, you're talking about 40 different cells. It's disjointed. Some of those cells will probably honor the ceasefire. Many of those cells, as we saw some evidence of today, will not. Before we actually can ensure that Hamas is properly disarmed, that's going to require, as we know, some of these Gulf Arab states to get forces in there to actually apply some law and order and security keeping on the ground. So I think it would be kind of absurd for the president to say, well, Hamas is going to be disarmed 3 or 4 days from now. We don't even have the security infrastructure in place, meaning the Gulf Arab states, our allies, don't have the security infrastructure in place yet to confirm that Hamas is disarmed until you actually go a little bit down the path of this peace mission, of this 20-point peace plan. We're not going to be able to say with confidence that everybody is doing everything that we want them to do. All right, guys, have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.